Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to this video. My name is Sonia Keeve, and I am the CEO and founder of Sisters with the Voice Podcast Network, also the founder of the Facebook community group #Podcasters Rock. I teach and train women entrepreneurs how to launch powerful podcasts in 30 days or less so that they too can get the credibility, the visibility, and profitability for their businesses. And so I had done a video the other day on sharing my suggestion tips and tricks for how you can get more engagement for your podcast shows. Because for some podcasters, they have maybe they're not happy with the engagement they're getting. Maybe it's kind of moving slow for them. So they're looking for ways, how can I get more engagement? And as the expert, I can share just a few tips with you. The first thing that you really want to do to get more engagement is first tell people that you have a podcast. I know that sounds really silly, but if you're not out there really advertising and putting yourself out there as a podcaster and that you have a podcast show, there's no way for people to know. So that whole adage of networking, even though it's in a virtual space, it's more important than ever for you to show up consistently by telling people about your podcast show, downloading your show so that they can tune in. Also, with getting that more engagement on your podcast show, it's important for you to share with your audience what your podcast show is about and how and what they will learn as a result of listening and downloading your show. Think of like TV shows or movies. They have what trailers, right? And so you've got to kind of do your own trailer of why people should tune into your podcast, what they'll learn, and really sound excited about that. Who wants to tune into a podcast show where you're monotone or you could care less or you don't really sound excited about your show? When I talk about my show, Inspiring Nations with Sonia Keeve, I really share with my audience that this is a show where women have these incredible stories of how they inspire nations every single day. And so that is exciting for people to say, hey, let me tune in. Let me see what this show is all about. Because believe it or not, as a podcaster, you have to really advertise, put yourself out there, share all the time with your friends, your family, your network, your tribe, whatever that is for you. Go ahead and make sure that you are putting yourself out front because you are the brand, your face, you are the brand for your podcast show. And so if you have kind of gotten into this slump and you're like, I don't know what really my position, what I'm really doing about the show, maybe it's time for you to kind of do a reset. Sometimes that happens. We start a podcast show off and maybe, it's changed directions. So if you need to do a reset, go ahead and do that. Okay. So let's get back to other things that you can do to get more engagement for your podcast show. Number 2, make sure you're advertising on all social media handles. So the places where you spend the most time, you absolutely should be advertising about your podcast show. But maybe you don't have a lot of engagement, say, in Facebook, and maybe you need a new audience. Try Instagram, try LinkedIn. But you definitely want to make sure you at least are in the place where people know you for showing up in, because that is the place where you want to show up every time consistently. This being a podcaster is not a sprint. It is a marathon. It is a journey. And so it's not going to be instant. And definitely, sidebar, don't compare yourself to another podcaster who maybe has huge engagement. Maybe what you can do is see some of the things that they're doing and maybe take some pointers that maybe you can add into what you're doing to help you get more engagement. Number 3, With your podcast show, are you producing and creating high quality content, value add? When you start a podcast show, there is a target market you're trying to reach, right? And so that market that you're trying to reach, if you're not getting the engagement, ask yourself, is the content I'm creating making the connection to the audience in which I am trying to reach? And if you're not, be honest with yourself, and then again, pivot and start again. Number four, I'm not sure which one this is, but Facebook ads. I know if you're somebody's like, Lord, do I have to do a Facebook ad? Yes. And the reason why I say this is because with Facebook ads, it gives you the opportunity to target a certain market that you're trying to reach. And so there are different budget tiers for that. And so there is you could do a budget an ad for like $10, but understand the dollar value of your budget will also determine the reach that you get. So the more you invest, the bigger the audience is for you that you get to target. So think about that and test that theory. Create, like, maybe what you can do is start off with like maybe a flyer about your podcast show and just test it. Test with the $10 one. See what type of engagement really connects with your audience. That can kind of give you a foundation of whether or not you are on the right track. Number five, this is kind of an easy thing, and I think a lot of podcasters don't do it. If you are someone that interviews guests on your show, before you let that guest go, ask them, when I put that show out there, about your interview, would you mind sharing that with your network, with your audience? A lot of times we don't ask that question. And I have learned, you have not because you ask not. This is your show. So you think about it. If you want to get that engagement, ask the questions. I ask all of my guests to share inside of their network, and most are very gracious to do that. Now, of course, there'll be some that won't share your podcast, and that is okay. But guess what? You do your job and show up and you share your podcast show. So I hope that these tips kind of help you to kind of either rethink or think about how I can get more engagement. Assess where your show is today. And one of the things, kind of as a sidebar, and I probably should add it as a tip, are you tracking your podcast show? Because that is definitely a beginning place, and I should have said that in the beginning, but that is a beginning place. Are you tracking your podcast show? And if you say, Sonia, what do you mean tracking? Do you have wherever your podcast show is being hosted, do you have a platform that allows you to kind of track what type of engagement you're getting? When I launched my show, Inspiring Nations with Sonia Keeve, I was able to see where people were actually downloading, like what states they were, downloading the show. And it also, of course, gave me how many downloads per episode that I was getting. So at least could track to kind of get a gauge of, is this show really tracking with people? Is it really engaging? Is it, are people really excited about what they're hearing? So all of these things, think about how you can get, more engagement. And then if you're someone that says, hey, Sonia, I'm really ready to start a podcast show, and so I need to get that blueprint. I want to start and launch my very own podcast show. I invite you to join my masterclass, Launch 7 Steps to Launch a Podcast Now. And so be on the lookout. If you are not my friend, definitely send me a friend request. And I also want to invite you to my Facebook community group, #Podcasters Rock, because inside of that group, we have both a seasoned and aspiring podcasters. But I also put information out there about my podcast masterclass. And I also offer a 6-week course that really takes a deep dive what you need to launch a brilliant podcast in 30 days or less. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in and watching this particular video on how you can get more engagement for your podcast show. And I hope this information was helpful, and I hope that you truly kill it in the game of podcasting. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Sonia Keeve, and I am the CEO and founder of Sisters with a Voice podcast network, where I teach and train women entrepreneurs how to launch powerful podcasts in 30 days or less so that they too can get the credibility, the visibility, and profitability for their businesses. Thank you so much. Take care.